What's going on, warriors? This is PL from Ultimate Fieldcraft and Survival, and today we've got a gear off video. Canadian poncho liner versus US poncho liner, also known as the woobie or the Ranger blanket. Stay tuned. So to start off with some very basic statistics, first and foremost, you can see this comes in a nice M81 woodland camo. This comes in the old school olive drab. You can see that there is a size difference, perhaps just in the way that I've rolled them. We'll get into those details a little bit later. But one obvious difference, and you can see it here, because I'm going to try to drop them to the ground from the relatively same height. Well, that didn't really work, but I will confirm that the US version is about half the weight of the Canadian version. I weighed the US poncho was about 660 grams. The Canadian poncho is like 1,260 grams, 1,280 grams, something like that. So there's obviously a substantial weight difference, almost twice as much. For my American friends, what can I say? You guys need to learn the metric system, multiply kilos by 2.2, just like the rest of us. Anyhow, all that to say, there is a substantial weight difference, so that should be considered. The other thing that should be obvious is, well, you may never have seen a Canadian one before. They are pretty rare now. They were only issued for, I came in 97. They were being issued this way, and then a few years later, when I switched units, I had to turn in this one, and I got issued one of these. So somewhere between 1997 and 2000, they got rid of these, and now even the American one is standard issue within the Canadian Forces. So I will say there's some comfort to this. It's very light. This, however, has in between the two outer layers, there's what feels like somewhat of a waterproof inner layer. So this has more of a moving blanket feel to it. This has more of a snivel gear feeling to it. So nothing wrong with snivel gear in some of the adverse conditions that troops are required to operate in. Every bit of comfort helps the mission, in my personal humble, not so humble opinion. So nothing wrong with that, especially for the weight. And this is a part of more of a thermal regulation kit, if you will. This is more of a base layer ground sheet. If you were in an Arctic tent and you wanted something to lay down underneath your air mattress, perhaps, this is thick enough that it'll prevent any pokey things from getting through your mattress. So I think this is not necessarily something you should just discard because, oh, it's heavier and maybe the color is ugly. Like I said, this has more of a moving blanket utility type function. This has more of a body temperature comfort type of function. So let's get into the sizes. We'll show you exactly how big these are compared to each other. All right, so let's get into the sizes, guys. I have a feeling the Canadian one's bigger because it's Canada, we're bigger and we're on top. Haha. Let's have a look. All right, guys, so I stand corrected. The US poncho liner is almost exactly the same size as the Canadian poncho liner. The Canadian one's underneath. You can't even see it. In fact, the US one is maybe an inch bigger on both sides. Here's just a close-up shot. You can see it there. Canadian version's almost the same size. Again, though, the Canadian one has that waterproof layer between the quilting. Maybe I should say water resistant, not waterproof, because I don't want people thinking that it's going to completely prevent moisture from seeping through. But I feel like there's a layer in between the exterior quilting layers that you can hear it when you move around the different layers. It's got that ground sheet sort of feel to it, which may explain the smell, which, by the way, you can get rid of by just washing it gentle, cold cycle, and letting it air dry. Do not put that in the dryer, because then you'll ruin that waterproof layer, or water resistant layer. Correct myself again. But all that to say, the US one clearly doesn't. It's barely water resistant. I wouldn't even qualify it as water resistant. It has insulation inside, a very soft insulation. You guys all know what it is. It's basically like that couch pillow sort of insulation inside, which does trap body warmth. Not going to knock it. The Canadian one I don't think has that at all, because it's very thin comparatively, but the choice of material is just much heavier. So I think both of them probably have a place in a bushcraft kit or survival kit, but you can see here that they're roughly the same size. Look at that. Looks pretty damn waterproof to me. So after getting out the old tape measure, I've measured it. Now I'm going to go back on my word, my American friends, and say, you know what, I'm using the imperial system for this purpose. About 63 inches across by 88 inches long. 2.54 centimeters for my Canadian friends to every inch. Do the math. So they're, like I said, almost exactly the same size. They have tie-out points at exactly the same places, each of the corners and halfway through each of the length and the width. So that's exactly equivalent. So you could theoretically use a Canadian poncho liner on an Army poncho, a US Army poncho. It would be compatible because the measurements are exactly the same. The tie-out points are exactly at the same place. Just depends what purpose you've got for it. Most likely, the Canadian one is better as a ground cover of some sort. Could be used to put your equipment on, just a place to keep some stuff from being directly on the ground. And the American one, in my humble opinion, has more of a body temperature role, so thermal regulation. That's what I would use it for. Thanks again for tuning in, everyone. This has been PL from Ultimate Fieldcraft and Survival. You can hit the like button on the video. Channel appreciates it, helps us get more views. You can also share this video, would love that. And feel free to subscribe if you haven't already. The description box also contains a link to my Etsy store where I sell both of these blankets. So if so inclined, have a look, and hopefully I can help your gear collection grow a little more. Thanks a lot, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great day.